Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come ye, oh, come to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Sing, choirs of angels, sing in exaltation. Oh, sing, all ye citizens of heaven above. Glory to God, glory in the highest. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Yea, Lord, we greet thee. Born this happy morning, Jesus, to thee we all glory give. Word of the Father, now in flesh appearing. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Let's pray. God, thank you again for this wonderful season that we're a part of as we anticipate your coming into our lives in a new way, as we celebrate your birth, as we dig into the Christmas story, and as we talk about these steps, how we can draw closer to you and one another. We ask that you would be with us today by your Spirit. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Welcome, everybody. And welcome, Judy, joining us online so far. May have a little bit more as we go along. And welcome, Heather, coming here
Thank you.
with Maggie to join in with us. So we're in step 9. Why don't we start today, as we do sometimes, with a little bit of review. Find my document here. All right, here's a simplified version of our steps leading up to 9. So we're first admitting we're powerless and over our addiction, whatever our addiction might be. This one's taken from AA, so they're using alcohol, but Richard Rohr talks about being addicted to our way of thinking, our perspective. It's hard to let go of the way that we think. It's hard to let go of. And one example of how it makes it hard, in a class that I took recently, there was I got to dig in a little bit to the study of emotions and what exactly emotions are. And so it's fascinating to think an emotion is a combination of a physiological or biological experience. So you're feeling something in your body, just like if you stub your toe, or if you go to a baseball game to see your favorite team. There's these physical sensations. You're hearing sounds, you're feeling sensations, you're smelling things. So those are biological, physiological. So our emotions have a component of that. We're going to feel something in our gut, in our neck, in our shoulders. I mean, maybe even in our body. It might be really pronounced. you may have had an experience where you're flooded with an emotion and suddenly you have a headache. That would be but a lot of times an emotion is it's kind of subtle. It's like a little tingle or a little tension or a little something. So there's this physical or physiological component, and then there is the thoughts that accompany that. The thoughts that accompany that are thoughts from past experiences, thoughts from your present experience, and thoughts from that are related to the culture and the society that we grew up in, that's telling us something means something. So you got this physiological, personal, thought-based, and something connected to the group of people that you're involved in. You're experiencing all that at once, and then we just simplify it and say, I'm mad, I'm happy, and that describes that feeling. And even within our own experiences, one experience of happy is going to feel different from another experience of happy. One experience of angry is going to feel different from another experience of angry. So if that varies within our own selves, imagine how much that varies from person to person. If I say I'm angry and you say you're angry in one moment, it might mean two different things. But we're just kind of in the dark pointing toward a shared experience, physiological and mental, psychological. And so when we talk about being addicted to our way of thinking, just imagine how hard it is, because we drag these emotions. These emotions are part of it. So it's hard for us if we think about a person that we have not had a good experience with, we might suddenly have an emotional experience, and it feels like we don't have any control over that. It just feels like it's coming, and what am I going to do about it? So this is actually one of the things that might drive us into addictive behavior, because we want to get out of that. But it's like so one addiction, one is somehow we're addicted to our emotional experiences, we attach meaning to certain people and events and places, and we insist that this is what it means to us. And so we're addicted to that, and then on top of that we might layer another addiction. It's like, I don't want to think about this, so I'm going to start drinking. I don't want to think about this, so I'm going to go gamble. I don't want to think about this, so I'm going to get in my car and drive fast. I don't want to think about this, so I'm going to pick up my phone and just drown myself in whatever. So this is when we recognize that we're powerless over these things. That's the first step, is realizing I wish I could control the way that I feel, the way that I think as I go about my day, but I can't. I may have some inputs, I may stop myself and try to tell myself a different story, She's not a monster, just calm down. She's coming toward me, you're going to be okay, you're not going to strangle her, that kind of, you know what I mean? So we may take a step and say, okay, I realize I don't have control, so I have to kind of coach myself and talk to myself. But that's kind of moving toward this idea of like, there's some things we admit we don't have control over these things. And when we throw in these coping mechanisms, that just complicates it more. Because then every time I feel something, I go into these behaviors. And then I find that like I'm going into these behaviors even though I'm not even really getting triggered anymore. It's just a habit. And yada yada. So admitting there's a problem, that's the first step. Believing that there is an answer, believing that there's a power that can help with that. Now that's a big step. Moving from step one, we might find it easy to admit our problem, but then believing that there's a solution, that might be really hard. Believing that there is a power greater than ourselves. We can deny that and say, like, there's no help for me. There's no way out of this. There's no Father in the sky. There's no, overwhelming power of love in the universe. There's no whatever. So it can be hard to even get to step two. But if we can get to step two, if we can admit there's a problem and admit there's a solution, then we start to act on that, and we turn our will and our lives over to God as we understand.
I don't remember we're going to restore ourselves to sanity, but I don't remember us describing what is sanity, the fact that we have feelings.
Well, that's the serenity prayer, right? Are we talking about serenity?
I don't know, that's then the second, believe that.
Oh, restore ourselves to sanity. Believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore ourselves to sanity. So have we talked about what it means to be sane?
Yeah, that's the part I'm confused about. Like, I guess that most of my life, when I was a child, I was raised that if you have a feeling, you're insane. And so
I see.
I didn't even catch this before.
Right.
That maybe this means my way of thinking isn't real, and that would be what makes it insane.
Okay, so sane is of a sound mind. That's kind of like one of the dictionary definitions of it.
Can I just say, and then maybe
sound mind, rational, mentally sound
version of it, but we kind of say that, insanity is making the same mistakes, expecting different results. So a lot of times we don't consciously, I don't think, do it, but do the same things over and over, thinking it's going to be different. But why? Because we have the same outcome. It's not different, So coming to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity, like doing something different, believing that, making a change, whether we want to or not, just trusting that it's gonna maybe work out because our way's not working.
Because sometimes when I have problems, one time I used to have our office burned down and we lost a $100,000 computer, which turned out wasn't insured because we were making time payments on. But I started worried a lot because I'm a money worrier anyway. But I noticed after we recovered financially, I would still start worrying about, if I had that feeling and go back to worrying about money, I'm thinking, no, I don't have that problem anymore. Why am I thinking that? So I thought, well, maybe that was insanity. I'm not looking to what God wants me to believe about where my feelings are right now. I'm just rehashing some old stuff.
So in the Bible, a word that's used, or a concept that's used a lot, is wholeness. And I think that if to be sane means to be sound, of a sound mind, that would mean it's kind of in its natural healthy state. We talked last week, I think, about perfection. I'd say this is where it'd be good for us to say there is a good, healthy normal that we may not call perfect, but that's actually where we want to be. Is we want to be whole and we want to be healthy, is what we want to be. But being whole and healthy doesn't mean there's no problems, and it doesn't mean life is not still challenging. It just means we're handling it the best way possible. And we also talked last time, I think, about being human. Being human, if we're naturally human and more fully human, that's really the way that we're created to be. So maybe sanity is the way that we're intended to be created. So there's balance, there's wholeness, we're functioning the way that we were created to function. I just want us to be clear, it doesn't mean that suddenly there's no problems, because there will be. there's no place in the universe you can go where there's not some type of conflict or things like that. But there are good ways to go through those things, and there are bad ways to go through those things. And everything that we experience in life is challenge, tension, conflict. It's like if everything were at like a perfect, quote, perfect space, probably that means everything would kind of be frozen in time and not moving or something like that, because everything is in tension. It's like right now we have the tension of gravity pulling us into these seats. If I lean a little bit more than I should here, I'm going to fall on the ground because the ground is pulling me. So there is this tension. But this tension is also something that's keeping my muscles strong. If an astronaut goes up into space where there's no gravity or low gravity, then their muscles stop working, including the heart muscle. It has less tension, so it's like you constantly need tension. Your back and your core is holding us upright. It's moving us around. It's keeping all of our parts in place. One of the things that happens when you go into zero gravity is everything starts to kind of float all over in different directions, and we don't want to be human means to live in a place of healthy tension, and there are challenges, but the challenges have overall positive outcomes. Just think about the way that we go through life. It's like we have to do stuff we don't want to do in order to do the stuff we do want to do. And it seems that the healthy order to do it is to kind of do the hard stuff first and then enjoy the benefits later. That's kind of the general, go plant a harvest and do the hard work and then eat the food. And that's a good way to do it. The bad way to do it is, break out your Visa and enjoy the benefits first and then pay for them later, And the same goes with like, instead of like working hard and then eating something to replace the thing, let's eat something that's like we have to work off later. You know what I mean? So
the whole thing, and I can't talk very well, I think a lot of it comes down to repetition. Mm-hmm. You, for example, stop yourself from eating sugar because you have a problem with it, okay? Mm-hmm. I holler at the telephone when nobody's on it. I get so mad. And people stop me. I say, God, help me stop, and I shut up for a minute or two. But it's a repetition. It comes day after day after day until finally maybe I'll stop.
It's one of the gifts of the Spirit is self-control. And so self-control usually is easier with repetition, as you said. If we get into habits and we just get into the routine of things, I've gotten where, like, the last couple years I've been working in the kitchen a lot at home and I'm doing the meal thing, right? So a part of that is cleaning up the kitchen. It's not fun, but it's like, it is what you got to do. But if you just kind of get into the routine of just do it now, don't go sit down and watch a movie and then come back later because then you don't want to, and yada yada. Just kind of push yourself and get into it. When you do routines, I think it might get a little easier to do the hard stuff, but routines are hard to keep.
Do you have to stop and ask God for help to do that? Well, I know I do.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
I guess that's what number 2 says.
It never stops being a challenge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think it ever stops being a challenge.
And I'm sorry I laughed. It's just so funny to see you pick up the phone.
So for me,
It's a recording.
the sanity part, right? I know when I'm acting out on impulsive thoughts, right? Like if I know that I'm worried about my bank account balance, for example, because we already brought up like the money topic, right? And I know I have X amount of dollars in my pocket. The action part for me comes in when I actually go to step 3 and turn it over and allow God to take care of those finances and give those worries to Him, because in step 2, I believe He can, but then it comes to the action part where I have to do something about it and allow Him to take control of my finances. Because if I believe, like I say I do in step 2, right, then I don't need to worry about that, because God is going to make sure that it's okay, right? And as of so far, I haven't, I mean, do I get on those little tangents of worrying about things or acting out on things that would be insane, you know, like worrying about X, Y, and Z, when I know at the end of the day, if I do my step work, you know, and it doesn't always mean for me filling out paperwork and stuff, but like processing through it in my head, God's got it. I don't have to worry about it. And I think for me, that's what the difference between insanity and sanity is. You know, when I know that I'm having these thoughts about when I'm not trusting God, right? That's insanity to me. When I'm sane or of sound mind, right? That's when I take the step 3 and allow God to take over those thoughts, those fears, you know. If I'm living in fear, that's not living in faith for me, right? That's my belief. If I'm being fearful, that means I'm not believing that God has, like, given me so much already that He couldn't give me whatever peace of mind for the intrusive thoughts that I'm having. And so that's why, for me, if I'm doing step 2, I have to do step 3, because step 3 is the action part for me of step 2, right? You know, if I believe again, then I should allow Him to.
Right.
You know.
That's good. That's like Paul talks about faith and works, and faith without works is dead. So it's like, this is, if you do believe, then you will act.
Yeah.
If you don't believe, you won't act. That's basically what Paul is saying. That's very good. This is kind of where it seems like this is kind of where the serenity prayer comes in, because this is the whole thing of there is a part for us to do. There is a part. We do play a part. So we do our part, but then we also acknowledge where our limits are. You know, if a meteor or an asteroid is going to hit Earth, for me to worry about it is insane. You know, it seems natural to worry about it, but in a way, it is insane, because what can I do about it? You know, what can it? It's the same with you know, we all have to face the asteroid of death in our life that every human being has to come to terms with. And if we are, you know, there is a human tendency to want to try to change things, and that will always be there. And that's something we do constantly have to kind of come to terms with and accept. It's good to feel anxious or fear. It means we're alive. It means we're still here. You know, we're still facing things. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to drown in those things. We don't want to drown in fear. Or, you know, I remember, maybe it was around the same time as COVID. For me personally, I remember experiencing, for the first time, I felt like I really, really knew what it meant to have my mind racing. And I'd heard the term before, and you know, I've heard people talk about it before, but I felt like there were some places in the last few years where I felt like, oh my God, my mind is racing. And it's like, it's where you get these thoughts going, and this thought leads to another thought, which leads to another thought, and you can't stop it. It feels like it's like a runaway horse, you know? It's gotten away from us.
I have those thoughts at 2 in the morning and they last a couple hours.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah. There is the one thing, there's little tricks along the way that we can learn, but with the nighttime thing for me, and I don't know if this would ever work for anybody else, and sometimes I forget about it, I think about gray.
You shared that once before. And
Yeah, I think about gray. I don't know how that happened, but it's like if I just
Color gray.
the color gray, if I'm in bed and my mind starts racing, one of the ways that helped me calm down is just, it's like imagine gray, and just put all of my thought and energy into imagining gray, and then I just kind of relaxed and fell asleep. It's kind of replacing the energy of the thinking, because you can, once you get the imagination going, it's like, you're thinking about something that just happened or something that's getting ready to happen, and
me, it's people
playing
places I
through
haven't
every single scenario. So that would be insanity to let our mind do that, because the mind is really not designed to function that way. It's almost like if you just step your foot on the gas on the car and just don't ever let it off. The car's not designed for that. Eventually the engine's going to blow up, So we're designed for thoughts. We're designed for imagination. We're designed to analyze, to reflect. It's designed for that, but it's not designed to just go, and not be able to stop. So we're turning.
The gambler who thinks that he just will turn it all over to God and just spend the money at the casino has just perverted that thing. Because I'm thinking of the gambler, the person who feels it's got everything he needs, but he's not being realistic. I knew somebody had a relative who was a gambler. It kind of amazed me how they had so much fun when they were going broke.
Okay. Well, I think I would imagine I'm not in the shoes of that person, but just from my own experience, usually the addictive things, the experience gets focused on the positives of that addiction, the positive feelings.
Addictions.
Yeah, you're not thinking when you're drinking alcohol, you might acknowledge that you're going to feel like crap tomorrow. You're going to have a massive hangover or something like that. But you're not sitting there meditating on that. You're just into the good part of it. If I'm here on my phone scrolling from one TikTok to another and just letting the hours pass, I'm not thinking about that's going to make it difficult for me to go to sleep, because my mind is, I'm not thinking of that I'm just totally wasting my time. We're not thinking about the negative consequences of those things. Even when we're addicted to, if we're addicted to our thoughts, if somebody, we talked about, was it here or? Yeah, I think we talked about gossip here. We're going to get to it actually today. So gossip has an addictive quality to it. And that's one of the reasons why people do it so much, is we get a rush talking about other people. And you get this little buzz when you're putting somebody else down or pointing out somebody else's faults or giving these juicy details about this story that happened to to somebody else, we're not thinking about how that's really messing up my relationship with that person in my heart, or that that's really turning me into a negative person, or that or the negative consequences I'm having on somebody else. I'm just into the juicy stuff, the ha ha ha, and the, you know, whatever that comes with it. So we don't think about the consequences until the rush of the experience is over, and then we're like, oh, what did I do? Or we have to face the consequences somehow. I mean, sometimes it's not until you get thrown in jail for a DUI that you wake up and realize what you've done, you know. Or sometimes you might catch yourself in the moment and be like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And
So, for me, when I was in active addiction, you know, I would have those little foxhole prayers of like, God, get me out of this, right? But the problem with that was, for me, I didn't realize I really had a problem, right? So I didn't do step 1. 2, I honestly didn't really believe that God could fix it, right? I was just like hoping on a whim,
Yeah.
because at that point I wasn't even sure. Like, I believed in God, but I didn't believe in God, right? You know, I knew God existed, but like he couldn't love me. And then 3, I wasn't allowing him to. So like the gambler that says, oh, God gave me the lottery numbers, that's not really how, you know.
right.
You know, that's not
Right.
really how it works, because they didn't
That's-
do the first steps, 1, 2, and 3
Right.
to you know, and when I'm using, right, I'm not believing that anything I'm doing, right, is wrong. That means I was acting insanely, because I was doing a whole bunch of wrong things. But in my mind, it kept my thinking in track with my devilish behaviors, so to speak, to where my wrongdoings, oh, well, you know, if I do this, that makes this okay, you know. And so for, you know, because we were talking about gamblers, oh, well, you know, I've already lost the house, why not go lose the car? You know what I mean? Because maybe God, just maybe, is gonna fix this for me and get me out of this hole I'm in, right? So that's where the actual, like, I guess, working the steps in a specific order comes to play, because, yeah, I can pray to God to fix this, but am I really allowing it? Am I really doing the things that are required of me, my part? Because I have a part in it, and just because, you know, God is there and willing to help me, I have to be willing to let him. You know, and for some people, myself included, I had to lose everything before I became willing. You know, and that was God's design, because I'm stubborn and hard-headed and not willing until I have nothing left, right? To be able to admit that there was a problem, believe that he can fix it, and then allow him. And then, you know, my part is step 4, the inventory. What was my part in all of these things that happened? You know, these steps are in order for a very specific reason.
Yeah.
So with denial though, see, I feel like denial's in a lot of problems, and she's sort of saying you deny that you're having all these things, so.
Right. So this is an interesting part here. I think probably when we're going through these for the first time, we probably are going to have to just start it by faith, because we don't really even know what sanity feels like yet. We can get so caught up in our stuff and have had it for so long, and it maybe we were born into an insane environment. Maybe we've lived an insane life, so we don't even know the taste or the smell or the feel of sanity. And and it's not until we start to experience that we kind of get a new baseline of like, that's where I want to be. There's like there's this feeling of wholeness and being fully human, that and sanity. I mean, I like the word sobriety. I mean, I think in some ways before it didn't have a meaning, but there's another word that there's a certain clarity with having a sober sanity. There's like a freshness in the air. There's a clarity to vision. You can hear things more clearly. You can think clearly. When we get to the place where we're saying, it's not a feeling like you're in an amusement park. It's not like a party time, you know, but it is this place of peace. And it's a place where we can really experience the grounding power of love in our lives.
Serenity.
There's serenity.
Peace of mind.
It's serenity, peace of mind. So these are the things. This is what we want to always move ourselves back to, and we'll find ourselves going away from that in different ways. Sometimes we go away from that toward the highs, and sometimes we go away from that toward the lows. But ultimately, we're looking to be kind of in this middle ground. It's like if when you wake up in a morning where you feel rested and refreshed and energized and excited about the day, that's sanity. That is sanity. And that is where we want to be. We want to wake up feeling good and having a clear mind. Whereas the other way is like dragging ourselves out of bed, you know, having to pump ourselves full of like 10 cups of coffee and forcing ourselves outdoor and turning up the music or whatever. That's not really sanity. That's just doing what you got to do to get moving when you don't want to. But there is that, I don't know, there's that sweet spot. But I guess you have to experience it first in order to want to come back to it, you know? And in order to do that, it might mean hitting bottom, losing everything. It's kind of like in order to taste sanity for the first time, you have to have the house burned down. You have to lose everything, and you have to just start from zero, and then start with the little good feelings. So yeah, here. Okay, so let's move through. We are in step 9, believe it or not. So admitting these problems, believing God can do it, and then there is this surrender. There's the serenity prayer, which is great. It's doing my part. It's taking responsibility. It's turning our will over. It's acknowledging clearly what the problem is and that God can do it. And it's surrendering. It doesn't mean that this is done with 100% our will in place. This is not like this is not something God forces us into or somebody else forces us into. Or it's not even something I think that we do like begrudgingly or like, fine, God, fine. Have it your way, fine. You know, that's not surrender. You know, that's just like, I don't have any other choice, so fine. You know, you can have it. That might be closer in proximity to the right way to respond. But this is actively saying like, God, I really, with all of my heart, want you to guide my life and you to help in every decision that I make, the little ones and the big ones. And I want my life to be exactly where you want it to be. And that it's this really deep, passionate using all of your might and energy and will kind of an experience. So it's surrender, which can sound like you're doing nothing. It's not doing nothing. It's
But in that
it's
case,
giving everything
Do
to
you
God.
have to repeat that again over and over?
Maybe we find ourselves doing it. Yeah, we might find ourselves doing it. Maybe I find it helpful to think in terms of relationships, to think about our relationship with God. So if I really fall in love with someone, then turning my will over to that person, surrendering my life and sharing it with that person is like a full experience. If I have to convince myself, okay, she is the right one, she is, if I have to keep telling myself that, this is the right one, if you're using the wedding metaphor, if you're going down the aisle saying this is the right choice, one step in front of the other, if we're trying to convince ourselves, we're not all the way in.
You might have some reservations.
We're having reservations. Whereas if I'm really 100% wanting to turn my life over to this relationship, I'm running down the aisle. I can't wait to get there and say my I do's, So maybe if we find ourselves repeating over and over again, maybe we're acknowledging, whether we want to or not, we might say, God, I have to be honest. I do want you to decide what I want for my life, but I kind of want to decide for myself too. I remember we used to talk about this as kids. We talk about what it means to go to heaven. Heaven's going to be awesome and it's going to be great and all that. But then I remember as a kid, it's like, but let me get my driver's license first, or let me get married first. Oh, let me have kids. It's like I'm ready for that, but I'm not quite ready for that. Now I don't know if that's the great example, but I think maybe it's a process of turning. We may find that there's one part of us that's ready, and then there's another part of us that's still holding back. Some of it is based on maybe we have trust issues. And maybe we have trust issues because we've never been able to trust anybody ever in our life. So trusting God is going to be like hard because we don't have any practice trusting anybody else. Why should we trust this guy? Why? Because everybody else has let us down. So we might find ourselves doing it, but still it's not totally easy. I don't know that it ever becomes not a challenge. I think for the most faithful people, it's still hard. I've spoken with someone recently and I was telling them, if you look at the words of the people that we consider to be like the gurus of faith, the founding fathers and mothers of faith, or whatever, the Mother Teresa's and the Apostle Paul's and Gandhi and whatever, these people of the ultimate faith, if you read their words, if you hear what they have to say, they talk about the dark night of the soul. They talk about being in the desert. They talk about losing their faith. They talk about having doubt. So if those people, look at Jesus. Even the Lord himself is saying, I don't really want to go to this cross.
That's right.
Nevertheless, your will be done. And so
That's good. That's what you're saying is so important.
So it's we're in good company, and it's part of being human, and we'll get to share with each other the joys and the celebrations of how we turned our will over this one time and this other time and this other time. And we had these breakthroughs. But don't get depressed about it as you walk out of Bible study today. There's going to come another time, probably around the corner. Whether it's like way around the corner or just as soon as you walk outside, there will come another time where our faith gets tested and our trust gets tested. But maybe that's what this life is for. It's like it's for us to experience all the different ways that we can finally surrender ourselves to God and trust.
So somebody once told me this quick little thing to remind myself, like when I'm going through things that I need to like get rid of, you know what I mean? I can't, he can, I think I'll let him. You know what I mean?
Say it again.
I can't, he can, I think I'll let him. You know, and that's like giving myself permission to give it to God and let him deal with it because I can't.
Right.
The other analogy, when I give something to God, right, it's like I'm putting it on a garbage truck and they're taking it away, right? I don't get to go run after the garbage can and take my garbage back, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
So once he has it, it's not for me to worry about anymore.
Right.
You know, whatever happens next is whatever happens next. But once I give it away, it's his responsibility. It's no longer mine.
Yep.
That doesn't mean that I don't play a part in it, that I don't have footwork to do, right, when it comes to the solution. But it means that once I've given it to God, I cannot take it back. It's for him to deal with and, you know, orchestrate the steps accordingly to what I need to do.
I think we can. Thank you. Those are. I think one of the ways maybe we can do this is find ways to practice turning things over in the little things, just throughout the whole day. Just pay attention to what do I want. What do I want?
Really, really want.
And it can come down to what do I want? I want for us to be able to make it through these steps to step 9 and actually talk about step 9 a little bit today, right? That's a desire that I have. So I'm going to work toward that. But at the same time, maybe God wants us to hang out on step 3 today. Even though this is supposed to be a step 9 day, maybe I have to surrender that and we have to let our conversation unfold. That's a little thing, right? I really want today for the clouds to go away and be sunny because I have plans this afternoon and I really don't want the clouds to be there. That's a little thing. But it's like I want to eat this thing for dinner tonight. I want whatever. All of these little things, if we pay attention to them and we get into the practice of surrendering all of these little things, then when the bigger stuff comes online, we've been working out and we're practiced in acknowledging what we want and what we can put our efforts toward. There can be some things that I want, and one of the reasons that I want them is because God put that desire in my heart. It's God is saying, go do this. I want you to talk about 9 today. It might seem like you're not going to, but you know. So anyway.
Oh, that's funny.
So these first 3 are big. You know, these first 3 are big. Admitting, believing, and turning over. It's almost like that's a really foundational part of these steps. Now, getting into the inventory and admitting and being ready and asking. This is some of the hard work. You know, this is the cleaning, the dusting, the remodeling, the you know, this is the hard stuff. And so what we're working at is ultimately kind of building our way up to 9, which is the amends. So these things get us ready for the amends, it seems to me. Doing the inventory, we need to have an inventory before we can really do these other steps well. And we have to include God in this process of the inventory, right? Just like God is there helping us surrender with the big stuff, God is here helping us figure out the little stuff of what is a fault of ours or not. You know, some of the things that are our faults, it's like they are things that we are actively keeping alive or promoting in our lives. You know, some of these things, we're really working hard to keep our faults going strong. You know what I mean? Some other things are not, they're just these weird tendencies that we have. You know, there are certain things, maybe I have this thing about being a little bit lazy, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just maybe it's somehow a unnatural part of my natural personality. Maybe my natural personality is like laid back, and that's a good thing, and that's who I am. I remember giving a card to, I think, my mom for her birthday, and I'm like 9 years old, and it was Joe Cool, the Snoopy character, and it said, "Happy birthday from your laid back kid." And that's the first time that I kind of started to get to know what laid back meant. And I think probably my dad helped me to pick the card out. It was like, hey, this is you, you know? But the being laid back thing, I mean, that's kind of part of the personality. You know, I'm not like loud and in your face. That's not my thing. But if I'm honest, like if I kind of like really sink into that a bit, maybe I get into the lazy part. So it's not that I'm trying to be, it's like I'm just being myself, but I'm kind of take my eye off the ball. Maybe it leans into that. I don't know. So there can be other things. Maybe we're naturally intense. Maybe we're naturally outgoing and passionate, and we can kind of slip into going off on people, you know, really kind of getting in people's face, and it just comes naturally. It's just it just bubbles out of like how we're built, you know? So when we're doing inventories and we're bringing God and the Holy Spirit along with us to know what are some of these things where we really need to get in under the car and make these tweaks. What are some things that we need to go easy on ourselves. Don't be too hard on yourself. This is more just part of your personality, and you might rub some people the wrong way, but hey, don't beat yourself up because of who you are, you know? So we get ready for God to help us improve. And part of improving means going and having these tough conversations with other people about how we have gotten off track in our relationship with one another. So let's dig a little bit in our last few minutes into 9. We're going to look at this paragraph starting with "in training us for our work as confessors." That's the paragraph toward the end of chapter 9. So Father Richard Rohr is a Franciscan priest, and so he would be taking confession, Catholic confession, and in training for work as confessors, a wise Franciscan told us that we should not, and in fact it was wrong of us to demand a manifestation of conscience from another person. Some things are not everybody's business, not even the confessor's. Any prying or undue questioning had more to do with our own morbid curiosity than any love for the healing or helping of the other person. We would do well to teach this to our whole society to protect one another from slander, rash judgment, and ill will. Is this not part of why the word anonymous is in the very AA title? So as we are having these tough conversations with people and making amends, we are very aware of how much we need to dig, or maybe how much we need to divulge in terms of the details. Figuring out how we kind of get to the core of what the issue is without having to expose all of the details. There may be some details that are important to acknowledge for ourselves or for the other person in order for us to be honest about what it is that we're making amends for. You know, if if a married couple is having a conversation about how things are not working really well, and we're not getting into the detail of about how he slept with somebody else. This is a big detail about the fidelity and the trust being broken in the relationship. If acknowledging that detail might be very important in making amends, we have to say, I am sorry for this detail that happened. Now, getting into the details of how did you meet and how long were you talking and then where did you go and you know, all of that kind of stuff, that is getting into this other stuff that's probably not helpful, but maybe this is more and it's going to be hard, because once trust has been broken, in order for us to get back to the place of trust, a lot of times we feel like we need as much ammunition on our side to protect ourselves in case this goes bad again. So sometimes we want more details, but maybe we want more details so that we can use it later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is the part where it's like, you know, if a person is on the other end, I'm forgiving you for this, for breaking trust, and it's, you know, it's not going to be easy for me, but I'm willing to try to move forward. Maybe on this other person's end, the one that was kind of the victim here or the one that was wronged, maybe it's good for them not to go into detail of all the horrible thoughts that they had about this person. You know, what I really thought was, I thought, you're a piece of whatever, just like your mom was a piece of whatever. And then it made me think how, like, if I had a gun, I would have this and this and this and the other. And like, if you do this again, I was thinking, like, I'm probably going to take the kids away from you. This, you know, so there's all of that. That's a lot of imaginary, hypothetical details. That really helping in this amends process? And again, we might bring as much of that in there so that we can kind of build a fort and protect ourselves from future failures in the relationship.
I really like this paragraph because for some reason with me, my evolution has been ongoing since I was a child, but it's always very slow, and I've had trouble with this saying you're sorry. I'd rather people tell me, let's talk about where we are and how we can grow together. And I like the process of it all, but I haven't had to deal with real extreme anything, but it's still wonderful to peel away as you be more aware.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, saying sorry is hard. Saying sorry is very, especially if it's not been practiced. Mm-hmm. And it is like anything else. Once you learn the skill, and there is a skill, once you learn the skill of a beautiful apology. Now I say beautiful, it's, you know, maybe that's the wrong word to use, but I think an apology can be, sometimes our apologies can build our relationships with each other, maybe more so than not having apologies. You know, if we acknowledge where we're hurting each other, because we probably, in relationships with one another, we're human beings, and part of being human beings is we're going to hurt each other. We're going to disappoint each other. It doesn't mean that we're intending to do it or that we have to make a big deal about it. But there are things that we're going to do and say where we are hurting each other. So learning how to correct that can really be helpful in the relationship. I mean, I learned that, being married 22 years. 22 years in September. So the apologies, I'd say, let's say in the second half of my marriage, in those marriage years, apologies came a lot easier than at the beginning. Especially the first year, when you're like, the first year that you're living together, anybody who lives together, roommates or married people or even family, when you live together, there's going to be issues. You know what I'm saying? It's like we have different standards of cleanliness and organization and the room temperature, and are you going to have pets in the house, and how late do we stay up, and all these crazy things. We're gonna butt heads, and if we can learn to compromise, say I'm sorry, it doesn't have to be something where we have these tearful, crying, dramatic experiences. I mean, maybe that's included, but
I'm not real versed in this book till now, but at the same time, like when my brother called me evil because I wanted to let my aunt's will be according to what she said it was, he thought as the man of the three sisters, he should get.
mm-hmm.
I didn't expect him to say he was sorry, but I realized that shook up the foundation of his belief, and took me maybe even 10 years before I could say, you're not the firstborn son of the firstborn son, you're the firstborn son of the second son, and that caused his whole world. But there's things you have to unfold over time when people become ready to get deeper in their he couldn't say he was sorry. He thought he was doing the right thing to try to run the whole bit.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes a while. I've had relationships where kind of saying sorry for the same thing might happen over a number of years, and it's almost like sometimes it, like you were saying earlier, it might take a while to realize the gravity of what you've gone through. Recognizing the other person's point of view, and sometimes it's not even an apology. Maybe it is just an acknowledgement, just to say to somebody, I've been thinking about. I know we've amended and stuff like that, but I just want you to know. Over the last few years, I've really thought about what you've gone through, and I'm seeing it in a different way, and I feel like I'm a little bit closer to understanding what you went through, and I'm still sorry that happened, or that kind of.
But it's, to me, most of my experiences in life is less being aware of each other's feelings and where each other is coming from, and try to see if we can. But that takes time.
It does, sure, yeah. It's a skill to empathy and perspective sharing it's work. Yeah, it's work, because we can be so different from one another that it just doesn't, it's all nearly impossible for us to imagine what it's like to be somebody else.
Are we done with 9?
No. We're close.
I love 10.
We're close here, because we've got this paragraph, finally, something about the truth, and then we have skillful means is not just to make amends, and then the 12 steps are about 2 things, and that's it. So there's 3 paragraphs left.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which we'll do next year.
10 is.
We'll do that next
Oh, we're
year.
not done
Yeah.
next Wednesday?
No, we will not be meeting next Wednesday. I will not be here in between the Christmas and New Year's.
Okay.
But we will start back up again the first Wednesday of January. So no Bible study next week, but yes, the week after. All right, I got my good chords for the first Noel. You may not have noticed before, but last time when we did it, I have to apologize. It just, on the guitar side, it wasn't good.
Sounded good today. I remember on the singing side, it wasn't either.
I think we
Right.
are on the third verse. So
Just the third?
we're doing one verse per,
Oh,
What did you want?
just the third verse.
Just the third.
Just the third verse. And by the light of that same star, 3 wise men came from country far to see for a king was their intent, and to follow the star wherever it went. Noel, 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 born is the King of Israel.
that song's too low for me.
It was too low today, I know.
Because I'm out.
All right, it's still Christmas when we meet again the first Wednesday of January, so we'll pick up on